Board Committee of the Whole, October 27, 2025. Call to order. So roll call, please.
O'Brien. Balmes.
Present.
Thornton. Here. Woodside.
Present.
Ross.
Here.
Garner.
Here.
5 present, 1 absent.
All right, if you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are all of our meetings with public comments? One pub, well, one pub. Would you like to make a comment? No. All right. Onward. Presentation 2023 to 2026 strategic plan, progress report number 5. Pat.
Sure. So as we do twice a year, give an update on how we're doing with the strategic plan. So we usually do one in October and then the other one in March with the budget process. So this is the 5th update. Hard to see on the screen, but it mirrors what's in the report in front of you. So we'll start on page 6. The individuals kind of responsible for each initiative will give a quick update of progress since our last meeting. This is the first progress report that we've got some marked complete. So those are either, for example, like the resident satisfaction survey or the compensation study, completed those processes, or you've got some like the annual roadway or capital plan that we do on an ongoing basis where it's kind of repetitive each year. With those programs wrapping up, some of those have been marked complete as well. So the ones that are complete, going to get a higher level, quicker summary. Those that aren't, a little more in-depth. So again, you can follow along here, easier to see. Those watching on YouTube will be able to see what's up on the screen. And with that, we'll kick it off with the first one here. So,
All right,
Brian.
thank you, Pat. First one under fiscal sustainability priority, initiative 1.1 here, develop fiscal growth and redevelopment strategy. This one really involves a few steps for me, and then I'll kick it over to Ellen here. But just covering the finance-related ones, one of the things we wanted to accomplish here was really to do a report that we could reproduce every year that would help us identify diversification amongst the kind of the big 4 revenue sources. So sales, amusement, food and beverage, hotel, so we can make sure that we have some sort of balance there and not get, too overemphasized in one or the other, or over-reliant on one or the other. Also within that is to take a look at the big 3 and what their impact is on all those revenue sources. So at any time we can, measure and have some kind of measurement of what the impact of each one of those is, should there be an interruption in something like during COVID, for example. Be able to show that, and again, make sure we're staying diverse and not too reliant on one thing or the other. Also within this report is a nice kind of geographic representation of where taxes are generated by type. So it's kind of nice to see, corridors and stuff about where certain tax types are generated. Right now, where we're at is the 24 report. I have a draft. So obviously some of the information in there has some different confidentiality rules with the Department of Revenue and things. So really kind of reviewing what is appropriate for public. And then once the 25-year calendar year is finished, the report's on a calendar year basis. Once 25 calendar year is finished, we'll reproduce it for the 25 data and then get it out to the board and the department to review. So really good progress. Ellen reviewed the draft, had a couple suggestions in there, so I'm going to incorporate that, as well as tweak the maps a little bit, just to make it a little bit more user-friendly. But I think we got a really good head start on being able to produce that early 2026 for everybody to review. So with that, I'll kick it over to Ellen.
Yeah, so the challenge for us is to then take that data and layer it on to data that we have on properties, both currently available, which is easy to get, and what's harder to get. And we identified the challenge or the disappointment of this when we've lost a few retail and restaurant properties to non-retail uses. So that brought it home for us that we need to do a better job of anticipating. So taking the kind of data that Brian's talking about, layered on the property data, and then really engaging in a way that doesn't necessarily feel, oh, is it not understood? Try this again. Better. Always feel comfortable for us. So, we're a market-driven for the market. We want the market to be able to support our uses. It generally has. we are talking about here that I think this initiative challenges us to do is to really engage, and we've heard from our residents in some previous cases that have come before you that they'd like to be part of that process. So I think the sequence, if we were following this ideally, the sequence would look something like this, the revenue data, the property data, what uses are supported on this property, will the market support those uses, will the neighborhood support those uses? If we determine through that conversation that the market is not likely to support what we have determined to be our ideal, then how strongly do we feel about those uses? Do we feel strongly enough that we want them, that we're willing to incentivize them or change our zoning? So the triangle is a good example where we have done this effectively. Unanimity of opinion really about the desired future state for that parcel. It needs to serve our residents, provide a walkable entertainment district. It needs to augment our big three. It's the right location for it. And we are, all hands on deck, having decided that we understand the regulatory requests that will probably be made of us. We have a pretty good understanding of the incentive requests that will probably be made of us, and this is something that we're marching, boldly forward toward. So that's a good example where we have done it. Well, that's kind of atypical. So what usually happens is we're responding to a use. Portillo's wants to be in Gurnee. Let's gear up and find them a spot, as quickly as possible. Or the Buick GMC dealer builds a new dealership in a new location, and we have a building that's very use specific. What can we do to go out and maximize and find a use that replicates that revenue and takes advantage of that building? So that's usually the way it happens. So to be more on the front end of that and be more proactive is maybe a little bit less comfortable for us, but that's what this is asking us to do, is to put that forethought in so that we can make our own opportunities when we're ready.
Can we ask questions?
I think we usually wait.
Should I email her? Oh,
Yeah, we usually do questions at the end.
thank you.
Ellen, I think you're at this side. Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, so moving on to 1.2, fiscal sustainability in working through some of the processes and procedures and ordinances that the village has on file. So predominantly our zoning ordinance, building code ordinances are the ones that are dealt with through community development, trying to keep those business friendly, easy to understand, and easy to implement for our staff. So we're currently working through a code update cycle. We're in the process of evaluating the 2024 building codes. Goal is to get those done by the end of this calendar year, making good progress on that. There is some state legislation out there that is pushing us a little bit. It's been a little difficult with some staffing changes over the last couple of years, but the goal is to get those done by the end of this calendar year. Zoning code, we're constantly looking and evaluating our zoning code. We had an instance come through recently for the large garages that was presented to the Planning and Zoning Board and then to the Village Board. Perfect instance of we saw some things happening in our community, didn't quite feel right, didn't have the look and feel of what we were looking for in the community. So we went through, studied it, had an informal in front of the Planning and Zoning Board, got some good feedback, and then went ahead and implemented those changes. We've got a couple others that we're kind of stewing on right now, one of which is landscaping on some of our heavier commercial corridors. So for all commercial properties, we require a buffer between the edge of the road and the parking lots. So if it's not a major street, it's an 8-foot deep buffer. If it's a major street, it's a 25-foot deep buffer. The amount of required trees in that buffer is the same, whether it's 8-foot deep or 25-foot deep. So we're going through and doing a little more evaluation, studying, trying to figure out what's the appropriate amount of additional trees that we should be requiring in that 25-foot deep. The 25-foot deep buffers look a little sparse when they're planted, so we're looking at possibly increasing that amount. Another one that we're constantly evaluating are electronic message board signs. We've seen several of them come through. They're not, they're becoming more and more standardized. The boards appear to be fairly comfortable with the standards that we've put into place. We're not seeing huge issues with them on the back end for the half dozen or so that we have in town. So once again, we're going to evaluate whether it's time to make that a standard-based approval process rather than running every application through a special use permit, which is a time-consuming process for staff, for the applicant, and for the boards. So that's something similar to some of the other things that we'll be evaluating and bringing forth some recommendations in the near future.
So continuing on with regulatory, in thinking about tonight's update for you, I actually went back and looked at the future land use plan, which was done in 2020, which honestly I hadn't looked at for a little while. So it was done in October, it was adopted in October of 2020, so still, you know, post-COVID was fairly new, fairly recent. But it was really interesting, some of the major policy forward-looking planning that document provides for us, and it's worth another read if you are so inclined. We asked them to look, and they looked at 4 what they called community character areas for us. So again at the Village Center, again at the East Grand Gateway District, the northwest corner of Eau Plaine and Belvedere, the 76-acre parcel where years ago the Jewel was proposed, and the Triangle. So, and they hit upon some really insightful comments, even aside from those areas. Those areas are pretty robust in terms of the deep dive that they did on them, but even beyond that, just kind of looking at the ways they chose to designate certain properties. Even back then, they identified for us, so they highlighted the fact that industrial that's located near commercial corridors and near high transportation networks like I-94 should be viewed as transitional and can support uses other than industrial, which was a fairly kind of new concept really at that point. Certainly hadn't hit Gurnee yet. And one of the examples of where we might see this in action is, I know I probably mentioned this, but I'll just mention it again, that the 28 acres in Tri-State Business Park that's right at just south of the Grand Avenue interchange, the Crown Corporate Center, which was those low-slung one-story office buildings, those went to auction in mid-September, and we understand they're under contract. We don't know what the use is yet. Be anxious to report that when we find out, but they are under contract. So certainly, we saw the residential that was recently approved there on Tri-State. So interesting, we intuitively knew that was ripe for non-industrial uses. So we're sort of seeing that in action. So that's one of the things they identified in the 2020, was actually called Compass 2040 plan, but it was adopted in 2020. They identified the need to support independent businesses and the fact that they sometimes need more assistance. Very prescient when it comes to our small business capital grant program, because we hadn't started that yet. So anyway, it prompted me to go back and look at that, and you might enjoy doing so as well. There's a lot of good information in there. So the regulatory framework, whether it be that on a future land use plan or what David was talking about, is certainly the most conclusive way that we communicate to the market about what we're looking for. But again, this initiative asks us to kind of take a step up here and go to that highest and best use evaluation that we talked about in step 1 or initiative 1, to really do as much of our homework up front as a community, so that when the developers come to us or there's a vacancy, we're ready to say this is what we want and this is how we plan to get there. I think I might be yes, the next one, 1.3, is formalizing business retention. So it's accepted wisdom in economic development, and with good reason, that it's easier to keep a business that you have than to have to recruit a new one. So that makes very good sense to us, and the well-being of our existing businesses, they're our constituents, that's always paramount. So back to that small business capital grant program, you have generously funded that for 5 years. Matt's reported out to you several times, and the most recent number is that there's been $1.25 million appropriated, and that has benefited 56 small and independent businesses, and they are all independents because that's one of the criteria of the program. So the projects that they have been able to leverage with the funds that they receive from the village is more than 5 times our investment. So that's paying off, and it also is paying off in terms of goodwill. That particular program received really high marks on the business survey that we conducted earlier this year, as did the village's communications outreach to businesses. So the form of that communication, and they mentioned this in the survey, takes several forms. Business partner letters are the most formal of those. Tom's Tours, which are, less formal, but those businesses really appreciate that. And then, of course, we also support a lot of our businesses on Gurnee's Got It with promoting what they are doing on social media. So the comments were very explicit that the businesses who chose to take the time to comment said that they do feel connected to the community and they feel valued by the village. So that was, obviously really great to read. Which kind of takes us to step 4 in this list here, which is really the only piece that I would say is left undone, because the other ones are ongoing and I think we're getting results. But undone really is this piece of an invitation to a business advisory group to meet with the village on a regular basis. And that's something we will do that outreach next year. But I think the good news there is that the Gurnee Chamber is already fulfilling a big part of that role in terms of our small and mid-sized businesses. And I guess my preference, since they're really, their trajectory is on an upward slant and they're doing great work, and I would rather support them in that work than try to duplicate it. So as it pertains to our local businesses, I would like to support the chamber to be that voice. When it comes to our larger businesses, and those are going to fall into primarily 2 categories, the large national chain retail, which have a whole system behind them, kind of dictating what they do and supporting what they do. And then also our large manufacturers, which may not have that, but their customer base and their supplier base is usually outside of Gurnee. They're not depending on our local customers. So my feeling is sincerely that you are giving them already what they need. So if I'm a large manufacturer or I'm a large national chain retailer, I want my cost of doing business here in Gurnee or anywhere I am to be predictable, to be stable, to have a stable political climate, to have relatively low taxes, low costs of operations, and you're giving them that. And our location gets them to their customers and their suppliers and vice versa, and our market is proven, and for most of them, that's what they need. So I feel like you're giving that to them. That said, we will make that outreach in 2026, and so that at least if nothing else, our name is out there, and if they do need, if a need arises, they know who to call. So I mentioned the business survey and a couple of things that got high marks and that, so I'll just kind of continue on because we did want to report out to you some of the key findings from that. We kept the survey open for businesses for over a 2-month period. It took that long to get 100 responses. We did finally get 100, and of those 168 were small 1 to 10 employee businesses, very small. So they're our local folks. 80% of them rated the village as good or excellent as a place to do business. The respondents were asked to rate the village services that they felt were most important to their businesses. So the highest top of that list were police, fire, and village communications. So kudos to I think we have, in my time here, we've always gotten rated pretty high on our communications, and I think that's just another validation of that. They were also asked to rate their satisfaction if they'd had interaction with the village in the past year for certain services, what their satisfaction was with those interactions. So topping that list were police safety checks, fire inspections, pre-occupancy inspections, which any business that's coming in needs to get, the capital grant program, and community events. So also an interesting list that ran the gamut. The aspects of the village that they felt would be most impactful on their decision to remain here for 10 years, which of course is what we want to see. Overall feeling of safety, quality of village services, quality of life, the value they receive by being here, and the image of the village was very important to them. So the overwhelming majority said they'd likely choose Gurnee again if they were choosing today, and by overwhelming I mean 75+% said they'd do it again. And a similar percentage characterizes our atmosphere as good, either the same or better than it was 5 years ago. Also good to see. And then lastly, they were asked to share with us their business plans over the next 3 years. Over half indicated they'd be continuing to operate as is here in the village, and a quarter said they'd be growing, either by adding staff or expanding. And the next, well, let's see, who am I handing it off to next?
1.4, I believe, is me.
Okay.
So 1.4 is create new strategy for operational effectiveness and efficiencies. This has actually been part of the strategic plan for a while. Started in a little different version. We were going to try to update this time. So last budget cycle, as we worked with the departments, we talked about different processes in each department that we could look at. And through those discussions, we kind of realized that a lot of the things that happen at the department level that just impact the department, putting it through a formal process would just slow it down. So it would take longer to see the benefits of those efficiencies. So I think what would be appropriate for this goal for next year would be to take a look at, kind of zoom out and take much bigger, process or identify efficiencies across multiple departments. And one that came up already was there's an opportunity to hopefully try again at getting the public works, work order software, the permitting software, and the finance software kind of all aligned on the same platform. And so I think moving forward, that's the type of project that really could benefit from a formal process versus, say, inspections at the fire department going with software. That's, I think putting that through a formal process with multiple departments being involved might slow that down. But something that affects multiple departments is much more well-suited for this kind of formal analysis process efficiency type exercise. So I think this budget cycle around, with that project being at the top of the list, I think we'll take another look at these and see if there's one or two we can, kind of pick off that list that have a far more, multi-department impact as opposed to just single departments, one for each, that, can be done in a single budget cycle versus taking a little bit longer, have a bigger impact. So I guess more to come with the budget process on this one as we work through that process.
Hello, everyone. As you can see, the initiative for 2.1, developing an annual capital plan for pavement, is completed. So, I'm happy to share that this past year was another record-setting year for the Village of Gurnee. We've completed nearly 9 miles of resurfacing, about 8.8 total throughout the village, including the reconstruction. It pushes it up to about 9.5 miles. So that's a record achievement for the village. We've also completed a village-wide pavement assessment, giving us an updated pavement condition index of approximately 71. That's an improvement of about 10 points from last year. It's directly tied to the strong budget support we've had for roads, so thank you very much for that. Looking ahead, we'll continue to follow our strategic pavement plan each year. Over the next few months, our team will be meeting with Public Works to put a preliminary list of candidate streets for fiscal year 27 program. And with that update, I'll hand it over to Heather to cover Initiative 2.2.
All right, so I'll be covering the utility reliability plan. So essentially, this is a compilation of data on village assets used to prioritize scheduled replacements based on industry standards. So each fall, we use this data to prepare the 5-year capital plan, and we all come before you and kind of talk about that for the upcoming fiscal year budget. Engineering, Public Works, we work together to create a priority list for the different utility replacements, and we also include input from IS department if the projects require things like SCADA communications, security, cybersecurity, things of that nature. We make data-driven decisions on water main replacements using factors like break history, pipe material, and age. Our focus on replacing the older cast iron main continues to be priority, and eliminating dead-end sections. So notable water main projects this year included replacing the old cast iron main in the Stony Island area and looping water mains at Blackstone, Estes, and Ferndale, along with the road improvements they completed out there. Additionally, we're making progress outlining the next steps for our SCADA master plan. So we bit that off into chunks. If you remember, we had like a multi-year plan, so every year we make steps forwards on that. And then with respect to sanitary sewer infrastructure, engineering extended sewer lines to Quality Acres, where residents previously lacked access to public sewer and could only rely on septic back then, but now they have the option to connect to sewer if and when the septic system fails. In addition to making service available to residents, we intend to prioritize sewer capital improvements in the same data-driven way as our water main improvement projects. So ranking things based on pipe material, age, type of soils it's located in, slope, issues we've had in the past, et cetera. Lastly, over the past 2 years, we've invested significantly in streetlight infrastructure. So we installed some new wire conduit in areas like Tri-State, Lakeside, and Data west of the roundabout. So that's been a good focus for us with respect to our street lighting infrastructure. And with that, I'll give it back to Nick.
Thank you, Heather. For Initiative 2.3, updating the pedestrian improvement plan, the village continues to review and update the Blue Ribbon Commission project list every year. We adjust it based on completed projects, new opportunities, and resident feedback. With that said, Mayor Hood also recently asked Trustee O'Brien to work with a group of residents to review the current Blue Ribbon Commission list and offer recommendations for future improvements. This year, based on community input, we've added 4 new projects to the list. By 2026, we expect to have 13 of the 35 total projects completed. One of the big ones still in motion, obviously, is the Hunt Club and Washington intersection improvement. If all goes well, we expect that to be fully completed by next spring. I know currently they have the north leg of the intersection for the pedestrian path installed. They still need to connect the east and west portion, and then the south portion is going to have a carriage walk all the way down to Wildflower. So hopefully that is able to get fully completed by the beginning of next year. In addition, we're currently working with IDOT permit approvals for the Gages Lake and Route 21 pedestrian crossing. Our hopes is to get that reviewed here shortly and then possibly get that bid out and constructed in the spring. We've also started looking into design work for the Fuller Road pedestrian improvement from Grand Avenue to Stern School Road, as well as the Granville right-of-way sidewalk improvement, which will be from Waveland all the way to, I'm blanking, Boulevard View. We're looking to, that's a vacant right-of-way currently, and we're working on the design to put a sidewalk in there for pedestrians to tie in a couple subdivisions. So with that, we'll keep updating the list as needed and continue checking projects off whenever funding allows. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Heather for Initiative 2.4.
So the final item under well-maintained infrastructure is 2.4, which is standards and mandate assessment. And the whole essential feedback on this one is that this initiative was started to create a list of high-priority standards and mandates by department and present that to the village administrator. So last year, we sat down as a big group, we made our priority list, the top one from each of the different departments, put that in an Excel spreadsheet, and used that as our primary focus going forward. So since then, we've used that list to guide us toward achieving each of our top standards or mandates that influence our respective departments. The strategic priority focuses on staying compliant with all of the different mandates, obviously, governing standards, as well as preparation for new items that could be in the mix and come forward that may need additional staff or technology, equipment, or funding, or all of the above to achieve compliance. Some of the items that are currently on our list, and not all of these have been achieved, but working towards the sewer and water main replacements in line with APWA replacement standards, continuing to meet at least 6 to 7 miles of road rehab each year, the fuel island replacement due to end of life, compliance with ADA Title II, including self-assessments and transition planning, which potentially could be compiled by a consultant in the future, which would then influence the expansion of our sidewalk replacement program based on that transition plan. Continuing to meet CLC JAWA and IEPA standards with respect to our backup water supply, and that also ties into our SCADA plan. Meeting standards for emergency communication systems, implementation of standards related to cybersecurity and information sharing, and finally, leveraging existing software to track information and perform more inspections to satisfy the new reporting requirements of the NPDES permit. I know it's a lot, but that's what we're working towards. And that wraps up well-maintained infrastructure, and I'll turn it over to Austin.
So for the strategic priority of effective communication, the first initiative is to conduct a resident satisfaction survey, which has been completed. Over a few months, staff and myself worked with the ETC Institute to put together a survey to capture residents' priorities, perceptions, perspectives, satisfaction levels. The survey asked a whole bunch of questions. They were mostly Likert scale type, which was, opinion and whatnot, and then there were some open questions as well. Through this, we captured, metrics we had in the strategic plan, metrics from the National Direction Finder, which would benchmark against other communities and ourselves in the future. So the findings so far have been, very good. Just a few things that have led to some concrete changes that I'm going to highlight is, a lot of residents said about 78% of respondents get their news and information about village programs, services, and events from the newsletter and direct mail. So since then, we shifted to keeping posted to every other month instead of every season, basically. They also said about 52% of respondents said that they prefer receiving information through email. And since that time, we launched the mass notification system, Regroup, and have been gathering a more expansive database of emails. Residents also responded that they had concerns with code enforcement to address safety, maintenance, property issues. And based on these concerns, we have since that time put to work a new code enforcement officer. So that was just some of the more concrete things. And then overall, it was pretty impressive, I guess, not to go over every single percentage, but to sum it up is that Gurnee rated above average or significantly above average in 35 of the 37 areas. And that was against the Great Plains region and nationally. So, from a greater perspective nationally, we're higher in 35 of 37 areas. The important satisfaction analysis with the survey identified village streets as a very high priority, as well as the adequacy of street lighting. Going forward, we'll keep in mind these results during budgeting future strategic plans and use them as benchmarks for our performance. So the survey has been completed, and on to Initiative 3.2 to create an interdepartmental team structure. We started this a few years ago. It really consists of a whole bunch of individuals from different departments. Sean Gaylor from Police, Dave Douglas from Fire, Matt Trujillo for the Mayor's Office and Economic Development, Carrie Suarez from Information Systems, and Christine Boisel from Public Works, as well as Trustee O'Brien. It's really a group effort. Everybody does something to contribute to the team. And we meet monthly and coordinate efforts to maintain consistent quality and one voice for the village. So with that, it's really helped us collaborate more, improve workflow, and position the village to communicate more effectively and rapidly with greater importance. One project that the team is currently working on is the redesign of the new website, which is supposed to be out in spring of 2026, so that's our anticipated launch at this point. But we have put in a lot of work to it, and it should be a very good tool for the village. So Initiative 3.3, develop a data-driven communications program. So this one's completed as well. Staff is collecting social media statistics through our Agora Pulse, our social media management platform. Through the request system, and then the new website will use Google Analytics to get real-time data. Since then, we really just look at the data and try to figure out things we can do better. When we put together the monthly communication plans, we look back at what was the hot topic during that month of last year, or what has been done in the past that residents seem to pick up on. So we look back at the higher scoring communication pieces, and then we leverage optimal send times through our social media management platform, and really just redesign publications to match what people are looking for. 3.4 is develop a constituent service program, and so this one was a little different. We were trying to add up non-emergency contacts to the village and thus try to eliminate them going forward, or at least reduce them through process improvement or just better ways of doing things or communication. Our system is kind of limited in how it reports. So we decided to build out the new website, which will be the front end for how the public interacts with the village, virtually online. And once we get a better platform in place as the new website, then we can go back and look at different service request systems that are out there and put that on the website. So that's the approach we're taking right now. We kind of put this one more on hold than, we're not doing it. So we're going to look at that in the future and evaluate different request systems for the village. So that's it for 3.4.
Okay, thank you, Austin. All right, switching gears over to our workforce. One of the initiatives, Initiative 4.1, was the completion of the compensation and non-compensation plan. We did complete that back in May of 2024, so we did achieve that. However, the principles in this particular initiative didn't go away with the completion of that plan. As staff, we still use some of those guiding principles of making sure that our compensation is fair, our benefits are competitive, things like that. So from this initiative, with our non-bargain compensation plan, it did kind of serve as a model when we went into our negotiations with our local 150 groups. And so we were able to make some improvements to just their compensation structure, planning out for the future movements upwards in those particular jobs, and then perhaps from jobs from the union into non-bargain supervisory positions. So we had a proper pay grade structure to be able to better manage that movement as time goes on. And I'm sure as we meet with our other bargaining groups, as time goes on, we will get to that same sort of practice in theory with our compensation plans. Second from that as well is our non-compensation element, our benefits. At the end of 2024, as we were looking into our new year for health insurance and other increases, staff realized that the path we were on was not going to be sustainable by ourselves. So during the 2025, this current calendar year, we have been working to move into a new pooled structure with the IPBC. So Erica is the project lead on that particular project, but we're working in tandem. Right now is kind of the crunch time, so we're getting ready to meet with all the employee groups. We've got most of the benefits set up within IPBC, and we're getting kind of the structure for enrollment set up, so it's all a computerized portal. So we've been doing a lot of behind the scenes right now, and then in the next month, we'll be starting to go out to all the departments. We have meetings scheduled. We'll do one-on-one sessions, help everybody transition, get enrolled into the new insurance. Again, the insurance itself is not changing, it's just where it's coming through, so there will be new cards, but employees should realize minimal interruptions with their current insurance plans. It will be basically the same insurance plans, and then hopefully as we go forward, stabilizing those rates. Employees will also get a benefit of a few reductions in costs with our dental insurance going down and some other benefits, giving more opportunities for benefits as well. With our life insurance, they have some additional dependent life, things like that will expand what benefits are available to our employees. So that kind of just came out of starting with this initiative and just constantly reviewing what we offer our employees to make sure that we stay competitive with the market. In Initiative 4.2, training opportunities. As we always discuss in the budget process, we do dedicate a lot of money in every department towards training. I feel that we really do target to make sure that people stay up to date, whether it's skills training for on the job or compliance training, IS training. That is something that is continually pushed out. So, in terms of a budget and, having summaries, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge trying to track all those hours. Every department has their own system for managing that, and trying to pull that all into one is a challenge. So that's probably not a goal that we'll be able to make, but as we do our budgets, I know every department does provide, some additional supplemental information about the number of hours or the types of trainings that we do. So that's something that we'll have to kind of rework and figure out how we want to do that going forward, to share that information better. Right, professional development and pathways. Again, this is something that during our budget planning, when we do our personnel meetings, we sit down and we review who's anticipated to retire. Do we have any internal candidates? Are we looking at revising positions? Is there a new operational need for something that we should go out and recruit for? So we kind of do that process during the budget process, but also throughout the year. Sometimes we have unexpected changes, or we put somebody in a position and they really grow that job. So we're constantly reviewing, making sure that we're preparing people for new roles, identifying new roles in our organization, in our departments, so that we can continue to meet the needs of our citizens, because it's constantly changing. One of the things that we did recently was we added a social worker position in the police department. So again, that's kind of an outgrowth of those conversations, and making sure that we have key people, if not internally, that we identify those people from the outside and see how they can fit into our organization. Coming up in about less than a month, we identified a new position in our community development department, which is our assistant community development director. So we have a candidate identified for that position. Again, that kind of came out of one staff member leaving during the budget year, reevaluating what our needs were in the department. So we were able to make sure that we're constantly filling positions and managing those paths forward. And then lastly, again, something that is stated as completed, but that's recruiting and retention. That's something that will never end, but we still, across all departments, continue to find new ways to reach candidates, whether that's more, boots on the ground with our fire department going out, meeting with our paramedic students, meeting through the College of Lake County, going into their programs there with the police department, starting their apprenticeship program, more visibility, utilizing LinkedIn, and just finding new ways to make connections that are much more, at a personal level, to try to, gain that interest from, current and future, people for our positions. So we continue to utilize technology, try to streamline our recruitment processes, get faster to the end line whenever we can. I know working with departments, again, to stay up to date, what's going on in recruiting, what kind of positions do we need, what else is out there, seeing what other communities are doing. Did they do something that seems very, beneficial? And we try to adapt it to us. So we are constantly looking to, improve our retention and recruitment efforts. I think our diversity continues to, make leaps and bounds. Every time we look at those statistics, it just continues to grow. And I think that's also part of just having a very supportive community and a supportive organizations within our departments to make sure that we continue to seek out, add those diverse members to our organization and support their growth, as well as, being open to everybody coming in. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Christine. I'm going to be sharing Initiative 5.1 with Deputy Chief Douglas. It's create a public safety recruitment and retention plan. For us, retention starts with wellness. If we support our people, they'll want to stay and grow with us. So I think we've made a lot of great progress. Currently, we started it last year, where we do a 1-hour wellness check with the mental health clinician. We use 911 Wellness Group. They'll come in with several clinicians. Each person gets an hour with them in the wellness room, and they utilize that for several weeks. And we found some great benefits with employees actually going back to the wellness group on their own after that. We've And we recently had a traumatic incident where our partnership with 911 Wellness Group allowed us to have clinicians at the department within a few hours. So that type of support makes a huge difference. Clinicians also join us during active shooter training that we have every year. We usually have 1 or 2 large-scale events at one of the big threes. And during that time, it's one of the few times we can get the entire department together because of that training. Shifts that are working, shifts that are off, they're all there. So at that time, we also bring in clinicians that talk about trauma and how to deal with it as best they can. One of the things that we're seeing with the retention, that the job satisfaction, we're seeing a lot of value in, just like Christine said, professional development and training. So we're making sure, especially with new officers, that we're utilizing every little bit we can. They're eager to go to training, they're eager to get specialties, and so we want to make sure that's available to them, and the village has been great supporting us with that. We also have, just like Christine mentioned, our apprenticeship program from CLC. That's been a pretty big success for us so far. They've been taking on a lot of tasks and have a lot more to take on once our dispatch leaves in less than a week or a week and a half. But we're pretty excited because in September of next year, we'll have actually one of the apprentices will turn 21 and have enough college education to apply as a police officer. So that'll be our first success of the program as long as everything goes smooth, which it looks like it is.
Thank you, sir. We, on the fire department, we continue to have our recruitment meetings. This initiative has provided us an opportunity to really evaluate what we do internally within the fire department. And so we've grown a lot from this, really having these meetings, having discussions, collaborating with Christine on just what's working, what's not working, and communicating with the different departments within the county. We have changed some qualifications, more or less categories. We've changed categories in how we're recruiting new candidates. So we are seeing much younger, newer firefighters, really firefighters who've not even gone to class yet. So that's been exciting for us because it was the last recruitment where we had a firefighter who, for the very first time, put on a uniform. So there's a lot of loyalty, in candidates like that, where if we treat them right, which we will and will continue to do, they'll continue to stay with us, grow with us, and just have a full career with us. So that was Will Spade, who made that first historical addition to the Fire Academy for the first time in Gurnee's history. So, and we have a second one going through right now. So we continue to collaborate, and that'll be an ongoing process for us throughout our recruitment and retention processes. And that'll be it for 5.1. And even though the 5.1 is completed, again, we'll just continue to research best practices within recruitment teams and just continue moving forward.
Initiative 5.2, develop a public safety community engagement program. So that continues to be one of our strengths. We have a lot of programs we've had previous to COVID, after COVID, and we keep adding to it. A lot of our officers come up with some very innovative ideas. Detective Sean Gaylor came up with the Safety Stars and Dilly Bars idea 3 years ago and got all the other departments involved, and that's been a big success, draws over 500 residents, seems to be a staple event. It goes really well. And then we also have more recently, in the last 2 years, the Cops and Bobbers. We partnership with the Park District, and officers go over there and fish with the kids. And this year, there was even other police departments that showed up pulling fishing poles right out of their squad, so it seemed to make its way around. Splash the Badge and Heroes and Hoops, that was this last weekend at Warren at the Almond campus. It helped raise money for the Shop with a Cop. I think last year we did over 75 kids. All those kids get a ton of presents, clothes, fed, so it's a pretty memorable day and some sad stories with some of the families, what they're going through, but the officers love making an impact and actually see it on the kids' faces. We're in regular contact with the Big Three, and our relationships are pretty strong. Even more recently, where we did high-risk traffic stops at Gurnee Mills, they allowed us the indoor spot where the old Sears Automotive used to be. So we'd pull in squad cars in there. We were doing high-risk traffic stop training for a couple weeks along with de-escalation tactics. So that it's hard to replicate that other places, and they're very supportive. We've also been involved in a new program, the pilot program, Protect Lake County. It was brought to the board several months ago, the MOU, for us to participate. It's actually been very successful. It brings law enforcement, healthcare, the state's attorney's office together, like a multidiscipline group. They review cases. For instance, if you have somebody that has some mental health issues, they're showing signs, what they're doing is not criminal, but it's one of those things where later on you say, I knew this person, there was all these indicators until they committed this act. Well, we're getting those cases and we're giving it to the group, and the group takes the healthcare providers, the state's attorney's office, and some of our officers. Sean Gaylor, she's part of the case review. Our new licensed clinical social worker, she is one of the co-coordinators, and they review those cases, and what they do is they try to help out with next steps. They don't actually go out and investigate it, but they'll give resources and advice based off the different disciplines and the expertise. So that has worked out very well. And Initiative 5.3, Stakeholder Relationships, create stakeholder relationship strategy. Once again, we're very fortunate for the partners that we have in town. The superintendents, the library leadership, township staff, we're in regular contact with them. If they're not contacting us by cell phone once a month or email, it's very odd because we hear from them just either to catch up or to coordinate on different things that are going on in their respective agencies or organizations. And then we continue to provide active threat training to local banks, businesses, anyone who needs it. We send officers out there with specialized training to make sure that they get that training. We completed a large-scale event at Great Wolf Lodge where the officers went out there and practiced active shooter drills through Great Wolf Lodge. And then Gurnee Mills has been great. Like I mentioned before, we have a meeting with them coming up this week just to keep ahead of safety concerns and keep the relationship strong with all of them. So it's been very fruitful.
Initiative 5.4, update comprehensive major incident training plan. As we hire new people and we promote our personnel, we continue to keep them updated with NIMS training. And I just want to make mention that DC Gone already spoke a little bit about having trainings throughout the village. You know, not too long ago we had a training with Public Works for trench drills. They are required to or asked to respond throughout the county for trench drills with some other equipment. So we've also just recently did a Six Flags drill for a mass shooter put on by the PD. We kind of collaborated with them, worked with them, and had great training with some surrounding departments along with Gurnee PD, ourselves, and Six Flags. So that was great training when we went through that earlier in the summer. I believe that was back in a couple months, May, I think it was May. Yeah. So again, though this initiative is completed, we continue just to keep working with our stakeholders and other agencies to just stay up to date on the different more trending activities like mass shooters or the trainings for mass shooters and any trench drills, SRT drills, and anything that we can get involved with throughout internally within the village. That completes 5.4.
Thank you. On to 6.1, also completed, Small Business Partnership Program. We're marking this as complete because we have made a lot of progress, owing in large part to the chamber. I mentioned earlier how strong they're, how positive they're moving, and I think you've probably seen and felt this because many of you attend those events, and I think you are hopefully have sensed that that's the case. There's just so many more mixers, so many more ribbon cuttings and grand openings. So, and as part of that, there's more opportunities for their members to become involved in our community events. And so we certainly, the chamber has taken on a more active role in everything from Gurnee Days, offering, bingo and allowing their members to be sponsors of that. So those linkages to the small business partners has just been made, even easier. So last year at this time when we updated you, we mentioned that we had streamlined or eliminated permitting for outdoor dining. So that's another reason why we're feeling like this is, kind of complete. As a follow-up to that, then we've been maybe had not quite so much success, but still working on encouraging small businesses and multi-tenant centers to host events. as part of this partnership idea that we kind of go with the offer of support, operational support. We'll lend a generator, we'll lend some staff, we'll lend some supplies, we'll come with marketing funds to help support it. And so we haven't seen too much of that yet, other than the farmers market, which is a huge example of that being successful, and a great example of a landlord being willing to host that, volunteers in the community being willing to run it, and the village has supported it with those items I just mentioned. But I think the next opportunity for that type of partnership will be, we're working with the chamber on potentially a Valentine's Day event to be hosted at Riverside Plaza. So not to get too far ahead of that, but I think that will be something that our residents will really enjoy, and we want more of that. So we're still trying to get the word out to all of the other multi-tenant centers in town that that's something we'd like to be part of. Moving on to 6.2, events. So that's events with businesses, or connecting businesses to the community. The next one is really about connecting our residents with one another. So building on that same premise that we have, articulated often, that a connected community is a healthy, strong community. This one encourages us to strengthen our bonds by spending time together in our neighborhoods, as a community. So taking inspiration from the mayor, this has been another banner couple of years for events. You heard about a couple of them from DC Gone, just tremendous. The departments being out, both fire police and public works have had a lot of dates on their calendar where they've been out and about in the community. And frankly, so have you. So really appreciate the presence. I think one of the ways that we accomplish this is that the public sees you out and about, offering yourself up for engagement. So that's appreciated and noted. So a couple highlights. The block party permit applications stand at 35 for this year. That is up from 21 last year and 11 the year before that. So clearly our block party grant, which we've called the Neighbor Up Block Party Grant, is working. That provides up to $500 in reimbursement for expenses toward food and entertainment for a party to which the whole neighborhood is invited for free. We now have an updated list of homeowners associations, which is no small task, given that that's a volunteer role, and it changes often, but we're making an active effort to keep that now updated on at least annual basis, and then sharing that across departments. Those HOAs and other neighborhood representatives will be invited again, as they were last year, to the State of the Village presentation and the open house, just as one opportunity that we can provide them to hear what we're up to and maybe have a chance to get to know each other. But I think there's more we can do there in terms of providing them chances to get together. So, and one more item, kind of that keeping that goal of cohesive neighborhoods, the Gurnee get-togethers have really been outstanding. Second year at Christine Thompson Park. Very enthusiastic audience, it's a keeper. First year this year at Bittersweet, with the idea of taking something to the west side. The attendance wasn't as high as it was at Christine Thompson Park, but it was enjoyable. So that involves, our departments being there, live music, lawn games, food, and just a place for our residents to kind of hang out and see, some of you and each other. And of course, the best part of all of this expanded lineup of events, as you know what I'm going to say, it's the partnership with both our governmental agency partners, but really in so many cases, our staff, but also our civic partners. Gurnee Community Church is supporting our Holiday Lights event. The Exchange Club is being there for us at our Bonfire and Brews event, and our business partners through the chamber and other avenues. So the partnership is what makes them so special. So 6.3. The goal, this is relationship building with multicultural organizations and agencies. The goal, I'd say here, has been for us twofold. One is just to be better at serving our community, so tapping into expertise offered by agencies like Mano a Mano, the African American Partnership Group, the Latino Community Association, so that we can learn from them, learn what we're not doing, what we need to be doing, and just be more attentive and more tuned. And to continue making progress on our own goal, which is the diverse workforce that better reflects the community we serve. And that, as Christine mentioned, has been steadily increasing by large leaps and bounds since 2018, when this first became a goal. So that's really something to be proud of. So several members of our various departments have been meeting on a bi-monthly basis over the past 12-plus months, maybe closer to 18, because things are always longer than you think they are, to talk about this issue. And then some subset of that group has been participating in like career and academic events at Lake County Tech Campus or with Lake County Workforce Development to explain the pathways to a career in public service to underrepresented groups who might not know how to find us or access us otherwise. Our schools, of course, do a great job of celebrating diversity, and many of you have attended their many events at the various districts. And so, again, an ongoing initiative. Work is never done, but I think for us, in terms of rounding out this particular initiative and action steps, would be step 7, which is sometime next year, we will probably include an opportunity for all article in the Keeping Posted and ask the community to reflect back to us how they think we're doing in terms of diversity, include an online link to a survey, and gauge our progress toward our goals. So I think you are up.
Initiative 6.4 is create opportunities for community engagement around strategic priorities. So the first one Alan mentioned earlier was State of the Village, hosted at Village Hall here on Monday, January 27th. It was well attended by a lot of members of the public and community partners, as well as there was a mailer that was sent out around that time summarizing all the information that was presented during the event. Another thing we had in that section was adding QR codes as part of the initiative to, to the newsletters and to mailers. What we really found is that they're useful for when people have to take action steps, such as the last time we used one was for the emergency alert system, and people registered by scanning the QR code and going through that way. Some new communication pieces that we have added was the State of the Village, the emergency alert system sign-out information, construction schedule, recycling guidelines, veteran guides, senior guides, recycling guides and disposals, and then we've also shifted the Keeping Posted to every other month. So those are some of the communication pieces, and that were under that initiative. Alan, you want to take the last?
6.4, yes. So this again is really completed, or at least where it's ongoing, and some of the key steps have been completed. But I think the fourth action step, following what Austin mentioned, was providing opportunities for residents to interact with you and with the department heads outside of Village Hall. So we started that process with State of the Village last year, and the open house that preceded it. Certainly there are the open houses at Gurnee Days. Everyone makes themselves very available. Everyone's very generous with their time. So I think that we're accomplishing that goal pretty effectively. So grand openings, ribbon cuttings, block parties, Tom's tours, being available to answer residents' questions when they see you in the grocery store, those are all contributing to that. I don't know that there's a whole lot more to say about this other than I think we need to keep doing what we're doing. And probably next year, the residents will tell us what else we need to be doing. But I think we're doing a pretty fine job of that.
All right, you guys done talking? All right, I'll go to my left and see if there's any questions to my left. Comments? Greg, go.
I'd just like to say I continue to be impressed by the leaders of each of the departments within the village. We call ourselves a village. I view us as a small city. We got a lot going on. And I've noticed that you guys have found a way, by way of a document like this, to get your arms around it. And not only not only get your arms around it, but you've been able to manage your departments, grow your departments, and innovate your department. And that's impressive. But most importantly, I always say this, what we do is we do for the residents of this community. And you found a way to not only include them and diversify the workforce willingly, and that's impressive. And it's very important to what, to the humanity of our town. but you've also decided to start including them. You know, I'm really excited about the block parties. You know, when I saw that, I was thinking, hey, I should grab my little community my block and do something over there. I've been talking about it for years, and all of a sudden, it's on the table. So it's exciting to see, and it's also, it makes me really happy to be a part of what we're doing here in the village, and, you know, thumbs up, keep going.
In here, Kevin?
I just want to echo basically what Greg said, with a nod, I think, to the strategic planning process. I mean, this can be a lot of work. It is a lot of work. I've sat on both sides of this table now doing this, and I know how much effort goes into it. And many times a strategic plan can be slogans and aspirational and really not actionable. And one of the things that is very clear about how every one of you has engaged this, and just the discipline of attaching the strategic plan to the budget process and to the individual departments and into the individual action plans, the way that each of you has, it's a lot of work, but it's really, really valuable. And you can really see what's important to the village coming through in this strategic plan and what each one of you is doing as you're leading your departments. And I don't know that I've seen a better implementation of a strategic plan than we do here. And that's a tribute to the process. And ever since, you know, Kat has started leading this strategic planning process, it's been this way every year. So, I mean, there's a history of discipline behind doing this and longevity in doing this that I know it's a lot of work, but I just want to tell you from the perspective I have up here, it's incredibly valuable. Just the way that, I mean, Deputy Chief Douglas, when you said this process has made us rethink the way we do things, and just the language about collaboration. I mean, it's a subtle change, but public safety collaboration and how you're very intentional about working together. And I think that's one of the assets of our village that probably a lot of people don't know, is the strength of the relationship between the police and fire departments. But here it is in paper, in practice, and just across the board. I mean, I could go on. I won't. But I'm just very impressed with the work that you've done, the quality of this, and just how well it serves our community. So thank you. And thank you, Pat, for leading this so well, because I don't think we give that enough attention, because strategic plans are often lame. This is far from lame. So, thanks.
Gurnee?
There's not too much I can add, but otherwise to say thank you for your leadership, and thank you for making us look good, because you do. And I've always said that to people. You know, you don't have to come to me and complain that, because all you have to do is talk to any one of you, and you'll get fixed whatever needs to be fixed. And I truly appreciate it.
All right.
Oh, okay, I wasn't paying attention. I appreciate each of you. That's kind of, I guess, how I'd summarize it. And I feel like I know each of you pretty well, so that's fantastic. But I also want to thank you for developing your team, because that's that extension of you and your skills, so I appreciate that as well. I wanted to mention one thing that I didn't even get a chance to tell Austin, but at one of the Environmental Sustainability Committee recycle events, I always ask Austin to give me a bunch of flyers. Now here we're recycling, and he's handing me paper, and I know that's counterintuitive, but people do love getting the flyers, and it's a really awesome opportunity for us to talk to the residents. And the last time he gave me the bunch of the emergency communication system rollout, those flyers, and so each of we'd say, here's the next recycle event. They go, got it, know it. I said, do you know about the emergency communication system? And I was so excited how many people said yes, they already signed up, because that's so important to us to be connected to them. So anyways, thank you for doing that. And Ellen, so I'm going to try and do this as fast as I can. and I don't expect an answer. But when you're talking about 1.1, whatever it was, you're talking about incentivizing the businesses to come to select a property that's vacant. I'm going to say it in my way. And I don't know how you'll do that, because while you talked about the triangle, we've got Baker Square that sat there for 5 years or something like that, and then went to a bank or a non-revenue producing, sales producing entity. And so I just was wondering, can you consider, what are your trigger marks to realize it's not going to go down as is? And I know that we can't affect the price that the tenant is asking, or whatever it is, the owner. And the second example is TGI Fridays. So those are, and that happened, that happened very fast. So what is our timeline or trigger that we consider we need to lean in or incentivize further? So kind of my thoughts there. You don't
That was a
have to
great
answer.
example. No, that's okay. This is the dialogue that we need to be having, and you're absolutely right. Those are both great examples of what we're talking about here. If we can anticipate those and communicate, slightly different, reasons why each of those turned to non-retail, but if we were engaged in, you don't always know. You're right. You can't always know. But I think with any property that's of significant size or significant visibility, we just need to do a better job consistently of leaning in, making sure that we're, in front of those property owners. Often they're out of state, but so it's hard. But I think if we're in front of them saying, and we have had this discussion. We've had it with some of our hotels, just to use an example, because the way hotels work is if they fall off the schedule, I think that's the industry term. So they're like, let's say a Hilton will have a particular property on their schedule through a certain year, and then after that year, if the property doesn't invest to a certain extent and do a property improvement plan, they may fall off the schedule. Or, even if they do, they might fall off the schedule. So just as an example, we have approached our hotels saying, if you feel you're in danger of losing your flag, come talk to us, because it's really in our best interest to maybe be there with you, rebating creating an incentive to help you invest so that you can stay a Hilton or you can stay whatever brand you are. So, when we can, we get in front of those things. It's not always possible, but I just think, just based upon some of those disappointments that we experienced, that you articulated being good examples, we just got to be, it's got to be, always on our mind. And Brian's providing good data to help us see. We know intuitively where we think, where our revenues come from and what types of uses work well together. And then the other piece is just, the other side of it is we don't want surprises, right? So if there's a big property, fairly sizable, and we think it might change use, get out ahead of it. Have conversations with you. Here's what we think we might see. Here's, if this comes up, would you be willing to incentivize this use? Because the market's going to tell us that it wants to build, X, and we really think that Y or Z is better for the community. What's your tolerance? Things like those kind of conversations, and then having similar conversations with the neighbors to say, what do you think about that? How, is this compatible with your neighborhood? So all that stuff, but that's what we do best, is we do partnership and dialogue pretty well here in Gurnee. So we can do it, but we do need to do a better job. And those two examples were evidence that we need to do a better job.
Just to understand the triggers, or are there triggers, are there timelines where we could say we've sat on this long enough, or the seller sat on it long enough? Thank you.
I think it's when death is imminent, like when Baker Square's death was imminent, then that's when we begin to incentivize. It's not when it's been on the market for a year or two, because like with TGI Fridays, we were dead in the water month one, right? Or whatever it was.
Snapped it up right away.
We were out. So we didn't have a say in that one. So we had to see TGI Fridays going down, and we needed to be talking to people 3 months before they failed. So sometimes that's impossible, but that's really where we need to be at, because the market moves quick in some areas. And Baker Square, I don't know why it stayed vacant for 5 years. That makes sense, right?
Well, I applaud your thinking on that, because I just didn't want to jump out and be cutthroat aggressive, but if you are, then I'll endorse it.
Well, I find Ellen's pretty aggressive in that area, so I don't think that's a problem. So
I appreciate the board's support when I do ask for those types of, that leeway.
Carol?
Yes. I don't want to repeat what everybody else has said, but I value all of you, and I appreciate the reporting. I also appreciate, after a meeting, how everybody stands around and talks, and so many times people just get out as quick as they can, and so that shows something about the way you get along. And then also, just working with the different entities and the library, the park district, the schools and everything, that says a lot about our community too, that not all communities have that, and you hear that from other communities. They tell you that it's not always like this, and so that's due to your good work and good intentions, so thank you.
All right. I just like the strategic plan if it works. I don't know how your life works, but if I don't have a deadline, I don't do it. Or I let it wait and wait and wait. And I hate public humiliation, so I'm not going to sit in front of the rest of you guys and tell you how I didn't do anything until yesterday. So best I can. So to me, if that's what the strategic plan does for you guys, would do for me, I think it's doing its job. And I do appreciate Pat's approach in this. I know that he's encouraging you often to stay on the stick, and it's not easy to do. You've got a lot of other things going on during your day other than to deal with this, right? So sometimes that's necessary to get the big picture, and thank you for doing that. So great job.
Well, I'll just add, the board, don't sell yourself short, because none of this happens without the support from the trustees, from the mayor, with the resources, then bringing that information back that you hear from your constituents so we can implement that into the plan. So staff does a great job with it. I think it's good to step back and look at it from a micro view, because I think we get lost in the day-to-day and don't realize how much we have accomplished as a team. So I think when we do this 2 times a year, even though it's kind of a pain to get it together, I think it does show the progress that's been made. So again, that doesn't happen without the folks that are sitting up here. So we appreciate your continued support as it relates to carrying out the village's mission. So thank you.
Thanks. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Baumus, second by trustee Garner. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.